Welcome to Books for Success. Today, we're delving into the wisdom within Together by Vivek H. Murthy. There are many threats to our health these days, but a silent threat is perhaps one you don't give much thought to: loneliness. It's a proven truth that humans need social connection in order to thrive, but we live in a world that is not only more disconnected than ever before, but we're also dealing with social distancing, thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic. If we're to sidestep the damaging effects of loneliness, we first need to understand it. That's where Vivek H. Murthy, MD, comes in. Physician, author, and 19th Surgeon General of the U.S., Murthy explores the world of loneliness and how it has damaging effects on every single one of us. With top reviews by esteemed names such as Lord Richard Layard from the London School of Economics and Pulitzer Prize-winning author Siddhartha Mukherjee, this is a book everyone needs to read. Subscribe and ring the bell for notifications if you want to keep receiving the knowledge of book summaries about health, wealth, love, psychology, and much more. Don't be shy about dropping your book suggestions for us to summarize. Also, you can use this video as an audiobook summary. Let's grow and succeed together. We need to connect to thrive, but how do you do that and keep your social distance? When you think about the types of things that pose a threat to your general health and well-being, loneliness might not be up there at the top of your list. However, as humans, we need connections with others, and there is a lot of proof to back up that claim. Vivek Murthy has seen firsthand just what loneliness can do to patients and people in general, and over the last decade, this has become even more marked as we disconnect as a result of technology. However, over the last few months, we have become even more disconnected through no fault of our own. The novel coronavirus, COVID-19, has taken everything up a notch. Now, simply spending time with loved ones could pose a health danger. As we move through the pandemic, it's becoming more obvious that rather than opt for social distancing, we need to opt for physical distancing. That means being close to people via other means, such as video calls and telephones. As a result, there is a high chance that when this is all over, we might feel closer to our loved ones than we did before the world was turned on its head. There are many examples of how this is happening around us. First, let's talk about Italy, where people connect by singing together from their windows and balconies. All over the world, we've witnessed acts of generosity, such as delivering groceries to those who are isolating. Murthy has discovered 4 key strategies that will help us during this difficult time. Make sure you spend a little time with your loved ones on a daily basis in some way. Cut out the distractions when you're spending time. Put your phone down. Check in with yourself and understand that solitude can be a healthy thing in moderation. Help others as much as you can. The key to conquering loneliness is to understand it. There is a big misconception about loneliness. Many people assume that isolation and loneliness are the same things, but they're actually very different. When you're lonely, you crave the feeling of connection, and you miss feeling close to others. You miss trusting another person and having affection given to you. Murthy identifies 3 different types of loneliness. The first is intimate or emotional. This type of loneliness is when you crave an intimate partner in your life or simply someone to talk to about anything that is bothering you. The second type is the relationship or social loneliness. This is the feeling of yearning for a support network. And the third is collective loneliness. This is the feeling of wanting to be within a community of people. Everyone needs all 3 in their life to some degree. Everyone craves a different amount of social interaction, depending upon their personality type. However, those who don't have enough often end up masking the void by turning to negative coping mechanisms, such as drinking, smoking, or even drugs. There is a surprising link between loneliness and declining physical health. As a doctor, Murthy has seen firsthand just what loneliness can do to your physical health. Murthy learned an important lesson about loneliness from a patient named James. James came to the clinic with diabetes and blood pressure problems. He seemed down and defeated by life in general. He then said something that shocked Murthy: "Winning the lottery was one of the worst things that ever happened to me." Before his lottery win, James had been happy. He had a community of friends around him, and he worked as a baker. When he hit the jackpot, he felt pressured into living the rich life, so he quit his job, bought a house in a prestigious oceanfront area, and moved his entire life. It was soon after that his health problems started, as he became isolated and then lonely. He lost all his friends as a result of his change in lifestyle. He became miserable and sick, putting on weight, which caused his diabetes and blood pressure problems. In our lives, we have too much focus on money, status, and fame, but as James came to find out, none of that guarantees you happiness. Sometimes, the simple things in life are far more fulfilling. Did you know? It is estimated that around 40% of the population will feel serious loneliness at some stage in their lives. Take heart in the fact that you're not the only one who feels this way. In 2017, Murthy completed an article in the Harvard Business Review, and he was contacted by Iowa Public Radio to do an interview. He was surprised that so many people were interested in learning more about loneliness and the importance of connecting with others socially. He was also surprised at how many people phoned in and talked to him about having the same kinds of concerns and problems. He was particularly touched when one caller simply said, "What is wrong with me?" This is a thought that we all have at some point or another, but Murthy himself can remember thinking the same thing in his youth. He felt that he was simply bad at making friends and that even those he was around, perhaps, didn't like him as much as they claimed to. The callers on that day made him realize that we're not alone in feeling this way, that perhaps it all comes from feeling lonely rather than having actual flaws. When you feel lonely over a prolonged period of time, it starts to change your mindset drastically. You start to worry that you'll always be alone and that you'll simply never fit in. The problem is that the longer this goes on, the more you pull yourself away from other people and isolate yourself purposely. It's a vicious cycle that we need to break in order to live happy and fulfilled lives. Understanding that we're certainly not the only ones to feel this way is key. Did you know? Chronic loneliness increases your chances of developing cardiovascular disease. Cultural approaches to the community greatly affect loneliness levels. Across the world, there are countless different cultures, and one element of those cultures is how likely you are to feel lonely and to what degree. This is considered to be much more of a problem in Northern European countries compared to African countries and perhaps the south of Europe. Murthy was speaking to an Uber driver from Ethiopia and asked him about loneliness back home. The young man said that the connections he had with his community are one of the main reasons why he misses home. In Addis Ababa, everyone takes care of one another. You can leave your children with your neighbors while you go away and be safe in the knowledge that they'll be looked after. Murthy also noticed many similarities between that and how his parents were raised in India. In Southern Europe, it's rare for people to live alone, and large family groups tend to live in the same house or very close together. However, in Northern Europe, this is much less common. Here, people are focused on being independent, even if they feel lonely and crave the connections they're missing. Loneliness is the biggest pretender of them all, hiding in plain sight. Loneliness is often hard to diagnose because it can easily be masked by other emotions, such as anger or sadness. This can make it very difficult to get to the root cause of the problem and, therefore, make healthy changes to turn the situation around. Dr. Frieda Fromm-Reichmann was a Jewish-German psychiatrist from the 1800s. It was Fromm-Reichmann who first looked at the possibility of loneliness hiding beneath the guise of other physical or emotional conditions. A patient who was in a catatonic state was being treated by Fromm-Reichmann. As she started to slowly respond to treatment, she asked the young girl to try her best to put her misery into words. She simply held up one finger to signify her loneliness. From there, she slowly started communicating using fingers and then hand signals. Eventually, she healed completely, escaping her anxiety and misery. In this case, simply identifying the loneliness underneath everything else and focusing on that helped this young woman get back to good health. Connect with yourself to connect with others. The most important relationship you have in your life is with yourself. Unless you reconnect with your inner self and know your own character inside out, you will have a tough time connecting with other people around you in a genuine way. It's also very easy to lose your way in the type of world we live in. We're always bombarded with how we're supposed to look, what we're supposed to do, and so-called perfect ideals that are impossible to live up to. You end up changing yourself to try and fit in, and as a result, you don't know yourself anymore. When you feel genuine loneliness, everything becomes blurred and distorted. You start to believe that you're unlovable, that there is something wrong with you, that you'll never have genuine friends. The truth is that you simply need to focus on the right things and make sure that you nurture your relationship with yourself first and foremost. This is the basis on which you can build By casting aside love for material things and instead valuing human connections and our own relationship with ourselves, everything improves. Of course, social acceptance matters in this day and age, whether we want to admit it or not. But we have to accept ourselves first. This is a particularly important lesson to teach to our children. Parents need to remember that helping their children to have a strong social education and self-confidence is just as important as helping them to learn academically. We need people in our lives in order to be happy and healthy. It is true that the most wonderful and special moments in life all tend to include other people. This could be just one other person, a group of people, or perhaps a whole community. For instance, when you have a child, there are other people in the room with you. When you find love, you are with another person. When you reconnect with friends you thought you'd lost, you're with others again. It's, therefore, no surprise that the moments of deepest sadness tend to focus on losing someone close or being without someone you love. This could include the death of someone close, breaking up with someone you love, or having a major argument with someone that simply cannot be solved. We find true joy when we are with others, and we find true sadness when we are not. With that in mind, focus on building new connections within your life, starting slowly and building up. The more connected you are, the happier you are, but always remember to take some time for yourself. Solitude is very different from loneliness. Conclusion. Loneliness isn't in the news as much as heart disease, diabetes, dementia, depression, or even COVID-19. But perhaps it should be. Loneliness is a potential root cause or a connected side problem of all of the above. Now, more than ever before, we need to focus on building connections with those around us, even if that is done virtually rather than in person. With the realization that loneliness can cause physical ailments and lead to chronic conditions, your health really does depend on your ability to get to know yourself, broaden your social horizons, and reach out to make meaningful connections with loved ones and the wider community around you. Try this. Ask yourself honestly whether you deliberately pull away from social situations out of fear of not being accepted. Many people do. Force yourself into those situations and break down the walls. Have you lost touch with a friend you used to be very close to? If so, reach out and try to reconnect once more. Work on doing something for another person every day. Good deeds come back to us, but they also help to strengthen social connections. Thanks for being part of our insightful voyage. If our summary piqued your interest, we encourage you to dive into the complete book for a deeper understanding. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more content if you're new here, and share it with others who might find it valuable. Keep on reading, discovering, and advancing until our next adventure.